You want to know the single most useful secret to start speaking French? I mean, right now? Okay, let's do this.
What if I told you that the #1 rule for French verbs, the key that unlocks literally hundreds of conversations, is something you can master in just a few minutes?
No, really. 5 minutes. Give me the next 5 minutes and I'll give you the foundation for having a basic conversation in French. Let's get started. So, what is this big secret? Well, it all comes down to one simple pattern that actually governs the vast majority of verbs in the French language. We're talking about what are called ER verbs. They're the most common group of verbs in French, and here's the magic part. Once you learn the pattern for just one of them, you've basically learned the pattern for hundreds. It's an incredible shortcut.
And we're not talking about weird, obscure verbs either. These are the essentials, like parler, to speak, aimer, to like or love, jouer, to play, and étudier, to study. You know, the words you're going to use all the time.
All right, let's get right to the formula. This isn't about memorizing a bunch of complicated charts. It's a super simple, two-step rule you can use every single time.
Here it is. Step 1, take any of these verbs and just chop off the ER at the end. That leaves you with what's called the stem. Step 2, just add the correct ending depending on who's doing the action. That's it. It's that simple.
Let's break this down with our first example, parler, which means to speak. For I speak, you take that stem, parle, and you add an I, je parle. For you speak, it's the stem parle plus es, tu parles. You see? The pattern just keeps going. Take a good look at this table. This is your master key.
And hey, here's a pro tip that's going to make you sound way more natural. That ending for they, ils, or elles, the ent, it's completely silent. So il parle sounds exactly the same as il parle. It's a classic beginner mistake to pronounce that ending, but now you know the secret.
And just like that, you can say one of the most important phrases there is, je parle français. I speak French. See? You just did it. You conjugated a verb and made a perfect, complete sentence.
The best part is, this rule just keeps on working. Let's see how you can use it to talk about what you like and dislike with the verb aimer, which means to like or to love.
So using aimer is super easy. J'aime le chocolat means I like chocolate. So what about dislikes? To say you don't like something, you just wrap the verb with two little words, ne aime pas. So I don't like coffee becomes je n'aime pas le café.
And you might have noticed that ne turned into ne with an apostrophe. Well, that's just a simple rule in French. If the verb starts with a vowel sound, like aimer does, then ne gets squished into ne. It just helps everything flow a little better when you say it.
Okay, let's do one more essential verb to really make this stick. We're going to talk about hobbies using jouer, which means to play. Same rule applies. Drop the ER, add your ending.
Now, jouer has a tiny little quirk, but it's an easy one to remember. When you're talking about sports, you use jouer à, like in je joue au foot. But for musical instruments, you use jouer de, as in tu joues du piano. It's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference.
All right, you've learned the rule, you've seen the examples. I think it's time we put your new skill to the test right now. You are so ready for this. Let's start with this one. Using everything we just covered, how would you say we play cards in French?
Did you get it? The subject is we, so that ending is ons. Nous jouons aux cartes. That's fantastic. Okay, let's try another one. How would you say they speak Spanish? And hey, remember that little pronunciation tip we talked about?
And the answer is, il parle espagnol, with that silent en at the end. You're really getting the hang of this. Do you see that? It really is that simple. In just a few minutes, you've gone from learning one simple rule to building complete, correct, and actually useful sentences in French. That is a huge step. So here's the bottom line. You now have the key that unlocks hundreds of the most common French verbs. The only question left is, what are you going to say first?
So, what if I told you that you could unlock the vast majority of everyday French right now by mastering just 4 verbs? I'm serious. Forget those endless vocab lists for a second. Today, we're going to focus on the powerful keys that really open the door to speaking actual French with confidence. Okay, let's get into it. And listen, that is no exaggeration. We're not talking about just any four verbs. These are the absolute bedrock of the language. When you focus your energy right here, you get this huge payoff. You're going to see them in pretty much every single sentence. You can think of them as your own personal conversational superpower. And here they are, the Fantastic Four of French. We've got être, which is to be, avoir, to have, aller, to go, and faire, which pulls double duty for to do and to make. Now, the catch? They're all irregular, which just means they kind of play by their own rules. But trust me, they are so important it's worth knowing them inside and out. We're going to tackle them in pairs, so let's start with the first two. First up, let's look at the verbs that help you describe your world and everything that's in it. We're talking about your identity, your feelings, what you own. These are the verbs for being and having. All right, let's start with être, to be. Let's just walk through these together, shall we? For I, it's je suis. For the informal you, tu es. For he or she, we've got il est or elle est. When we talk about we, that's nous sommes. For the formal or plural you, it's vous êtes. And finally, for they, it's ils sont or elles sont. Each one has its own vibe, its own sound, so really listen to the pronunciation. That's key. So when do you actually use this thing? Well, think of être as the verb you use to define who you are. It's for your identity, like saying, I am a student. It's for your job, your nationality, and even how you're feeling, like je suis fatigué, I am tired. It's all about who you are and what you're like. Okay, moving on to the second verb in this pair, avoir, which means to have. Right off the bat, you'll see something for I. The je becomes j'ai apostrophe because A starts with a vowel. So we say j'ai. Got it? From there, it's tu as, il a, nous avons, vous avez, and ils ont. Simply put, this verb is all about possession, what you've got. Now here's where it gets really interesting because there's a classic trap for us English speakers. Check this out. In English, we say I am hungry or I am 20 years old, right? But in French, you use avoir. You literally say, I have hunger, j'ai faim, or I have 20 years, j'ai 20 ans. This is a huge aha moment for so many learners. If you can nail this one difference, you are going to sound so much more natural instantly. All right, so we've covered being and having. Let's shift gears to our next pair, the action verbs. These are the ones that actually get you moving and doing things. They're what put your world in motion. And here it is, aller, to go. This one is super irregular. You can just see it, but you will hear it all the time. So we have je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, and ils vont. As you can see, it's the verb of movement, of destination. And of course, it's famous for being in the greeting comment allez-vous, or the super common ça va? So useful. Okay, and this leads us to one of my favorite French grammar hacks. Seriously, this is your secret weapon for talking about the future right now without learning a whole new complex tense. It's a simple two-step recipe. You take the form of aller we just learned, and then you just tack on any other verb in its original, infinitive form. So je vais plus parler becomes je vais parler. I am going to speak. It is literally that easy. Okay, time for our final power verb, faire. And this one is so cool because it means both to do and to make. Let's run through it. Je fais, tu fais, il fait, nous faisons, vous faites, and ils font. Get ready because this is like the Swiss Army knife of verbs. You use it for all kinds of activities. Just look at how much this one verb can do. You use it for sports and hobbies, like je fais du sport. You use it for activities and chores, like je fais mes devoirs. I'm doing my homework. And here's a weird one. You even use it for the weather. Il fait beau literally means it makes beautiful, but we just say the weather is nice. It's an absolute workhorse of the French language. Okay, so you've seen all four verbs. You've got the tools. Now it's time to actually use them. Let's do a quick little practice round and put this new foundation to the test. You ready? First one, how would you say I am a teacher? Okay, think back. Which verb was for professions and identity? That's it. Je suis professeur. You're using être to describe who you are. Nicely done. All right, next up. How about this one? I have a cat. Which verb was all about possession, about what you have? You got it. J'ai un chat. Using avoir to talk about what belongs to you. Perfect. And for the last one in our quiz, how do you say, I'm going to Paris? Which one was our verb of movement?
Je vais à Paris.
Exactly. That's aller showing us where you're headed. Fantastic work. So let's just lock this in. This is your new conversational toolkit. To describe yourself, you're going to use être. To say what you have, you've got avoir. To talk about where you're going, it's all about aller. And for pretty much any activity you can think of, you'll be reaching for faire. These 4 verbs, they are the absolute pillars of French conversation. And there you have it. You just walked through the 4 most essential verbs in the entire French language. You now have the foundation to build thousands of sentences to describe your world, your actions, and everything you're planning to do. So, the only real question left is, what are you going to say first?
Have you ever wanted to talk about your day? You know, waking up, eating, going to bed, and make it sound like actual natural French? Well, you're about to. We're going to take all those simple, everyday actions of yours and turn them into a real conversation. Think about it. Your daily routine is practically automatic. Coffee, work, sleep, but trying to explain that in French? Yeah, that can feel like a whole different ball game. The good news is there's one little trick, one simple shift in how you think that makes it all just click. So let's get right into it. So here's the secret. It all comes down to what I like to call the myself verbs. See, in French, whenever you do something to yourself, like you wash yourself or you wake yourself up, the language has this really cool specific way of showing it. If you can get this one idea down, you've basically unlocked the language of daily life.
Okay, so the official name for these are reflexive verbs, and it's because the action literally reflects back on the person doing it. So you don't just wake up, you wake yourself up. You don't just get dressed, you dress yourself. Getting that little myself idea in your head is the key to pretty much everything we're going to cover.
Now just take a look at the pattern right here on this slide. It's actually super logical. For every subject on the left, you've got its matching reflexive buddy in the middle. Je, that's I, it always pairs with me. Tu, you, pairs with te. And hey, check out the easy ones. Nous, for we, pairs with, well, nous. And vous pairs with vous. See? It's a clean system where everyone's got a partner. And this right here is the perfect example. Let's break it down. Je is I. Lève is the action, to get up. And that little me wedged in the middle, that's our self. So literally, it's I get myself up. Of course, in English, we just say I get up. But understanding that literal French meaning is what makes the light bulb go on.
All right, so now we've got our number 1 tool, the reflexive verb. Let's actually put it to work. We're going to build an entire day in French, right from the moment your alarm clock screams at you to the second your head finally hits the pillow.
Let's just walk through this day together. So at 7 a.m., it's je me réveille. I wake myself up. Makes sense. Then at 8 a.m., je me brosse les dents. I brush my teeth. The action is on me. But now look at dinner at 7 p.m. It's just je dîne. Why? Because you're eating dinner. You aren't dinnering yourself. That's the difference right there. And to wrap it up, at 10 p.m., je me couche. I put myself to bed. You see that pattern? It's all about actions you do to yourself.
And hey, here's a quick pro tip to make your sentences sound even better. Anytime you want to say you do something at a certain time, you just pop the little word a right before the hour. So I wake up at 7 o'clock becomes je me réveille à 7 heures. So simple, right?
Okay, so you can say what you do and when you do it. That's huge. But you know, life isn't always so scheduled. How do you talk about the stuff you always do, or maybe things you rarely do? That brings us to our next level, adding some rhythm.
These words here, they are about to become your new best friends for sounding more natural. They cover the whole range from toujours for things you always do, all the way down to jamais for never. Just look at the example. Je me lève souvent tôt. I often get up early. See how it adds that little bit of personal flair? So you're probably wondering, where do these awesome words actually go in a sentence? Well, in French, it's actually super simple. They almost always go right after the verb. That's it. Unlike English, where we can kind of move them around, in French, you just stick it right after the action. Je mange souvent. Nous regardons rarement. It's a really easy rule to remember.
Okay, theory is great and all, but language is meant to be spoken, right? So now it's your turn. I'm going to say a few sentences, and I want you to say them out loud right after me. Let's put all these pieces together. You ready?
First up, let's talk about the morning. Go ahead and try saying this, je me réveille à 8 heures. Perfect. You just said, I wake up at 8 o'clock. Okay, how about the end of the day? Repeat this one after me. Je me couche à 11 heures.
Excellent. That's I go to bed at 11 o'clock.
Awesome. Now let's add one of our new rhythm words. Say this with me. Je prends toujours un café le matin.
Fantastic. You just said, I always have a coffee in the morning.
And let's do one last one, this time using rarely. Give this a shot. Je fais rarement du sport le soir. You totally got this. I rarely play sports in the evening. See?
So, let's recap. We've gone over the myself verbs, we've talked about how to say the time, and we've added words to show how often things happen. You seriously have all the tools you need right now to describe your entire day in French. So, the only question left is, what is your daily routine? Using everything we just learned, how would you answer that? Welcome! Today, we're going to unlock one of the simplest, most useful tenses in French. I'm going to show you how you can talk about the future without getting totally lost in complicated grammar. Let's dive right in.
You know that feeling, right? You've tried to explain your plans for tomorrow or maybe the weekend in French, and you just feel stuck. You know exactly what you want to say, but the grammar feels like this huge wall. Well, there's a super simple way to do it that sounds completely natural.
So you can forget all those tricky verb endings, at least for now. The secret is a tense called le futur proche, and here's the best part. It's pretty much exactly like the going to future we use all the time in English. Mastering this one thing is the key to sounding natural when you're talking about your plans.
Okay, so let's get into it. How does this going to future actually work? Well, it all comes down to a really simple, totally repeatable formula.
First off, the name itself gives us a huge clue. Le futur proche. That literally just means the near future. You use it for things you're actually planning on doing, stuff that's just around the corner, tonight, tomorrow, this weekend.
And the formula? Honestly, it couldn't be simpler. It's just 3 parts. First, you've got your subject, who's doing the action. Second, you use the verb aller, which means to go, and you just match it to the subject. And third, you just drop in your main action verb in its original unchanged form. That's it. That's the whole recipe.
Take a look at this example. Je vais manger. See the formula in action? Je is the subject, I. Vais is just the verb aller for I, and manger, to eat, is the infinitive, just sitting there. It's a direct word-for-word translation of I am going to eat. Simple, right?
Now, the only piece of this puzzle you actually need to memorize is that one verb, aller. Just think of it as the engine of the sentence. It's the one part that changes to make the whole thing work.
And here they are, the 6 forms you need to know. Je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, and ils vont. Once you get these down, you can pair them with pretty much any verb in the French language to say what someone is going to do. It's incredibly powerful. And this right here is probably the most important rule to remember. Do not change that second verb. It doesn't matter if you're going to eat, sleep, travel, or study. That verb always stays in its original infinitive form. Only aller ever changes.
All right, we've got the formula, we've got the key verb. Now let's put it all together and start making some actual plans in French. This is the fun part.
Okay, so to really level up your sentences, you can start adding some simple time words. You know, things like demain for tomorrow, ce soir for this evening, or la semaine prochaine for next week. This is what gives your plans some real context.
For instance, you could say, Demain, je vais aller à la plage. See what happened there? You just take your base sentence, I'm going to go, and you pop tomorrow right on the front to specify when. It's that easy.
All right, theory is great, but the absolute best way to learn is by doing it. So let's put your new skill to the test right now. I'll give you a sentence in English. You try to translate it into French. Ready?
Okay, first one up. How would you say, I'm going to study tomorrow? Take a second. Remember the 3 parts: the subject, the right form of aller, and the infinitive.
And there you have it. Je vais étudier demain.
Excellent. Let's try another one. Okay, next one. We're going to eat pizza tonight. Think about that form of aller that goes with oui. Exactly. Nous allons manger une pizza ce soir. See? You're getting the hang of this. Let's do one more.
All right, last one for our little practice round. How would you say, they're going to travel next week?
Perfect. Ils vont voyager la semaine prochaine. See? It's just a simple, repeatable pattern. You've totally got this.
Now, just one quick but really important point. You might have heard of another future tense, the future sample. The difference is actually pretty straightforward. You use the future plush, the one we just learned, for definite near-future plans. The future sample is more for distant or kind of uncertain ideas, like, I will leave someday. So the main takeaway here is that for everyday conversations about your actual plans, les futurs proches isn't just the easier option, it's very often the better, more natural choice. For sure, it should be your go-to future tense. So let's do a super quick recap of the essentials. Remember that 3-part formula: subject plus the right form of the verb aller plus an infinitive. Use it to talk about your near-future plans and intentions, and make it even clearer by adding time words like demain or ce soir.
And with that, you have a really powerful new tool in your French toolkit. So I'll leave you with a question to try out on your own. Qu'est-ce que tu vas faire demain? What are you going to do tomorrow? And the best part is, now you know exactly how to answer. Happy planning!
Bonjour à tous. So, you're learning French and you can probably point at things and name them. That's awesome. But today we're going to level up. We're going beyond just naming stuff to actually describing it, saying who it belongs to. This is how you inject color, personality, and life into your French, making it sound way more natural.
Here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle how to say my, your, and his or hers. Then, we'll get into the fun stuff, adding personality with descriptive words. After that, we'll cover the one golden rule that ties it all together, and finally, we'll put it all into practice. It's gonna be great.
So, you ready to make your French way more interesting? I thought so. Excellent. Let's dive right in. Okay, first up, possessive adjectives. Now, in English, this is pretty straightforward, right? We say my car or her car, and the word we choose depends on the owner. Well, get ready for a little twist, because in French, it's different. The word you use depends on the thing being owned. And that right there, that's the key idea you need to wrap your head around.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it just lays this all out for us. Take a look at that top row for je, which means I. You don't just get one word for my, you get 3. You've got mon for masculine things, ma for feminine things, and miss for anything that's plural. The word you pick has everything to do with the noun you're talking about.
So, for example, the word for book, livre, is a masculine noun in French, so you would say mon livre.
But what if you're talking about your house? Well, maison is a feminine noun, so you have to switch gears and use ma. It becomes ma maison. See how that works? It has nothing to do with you, the owner, and everything to do with the object itself.
And what about plurals? This is where it gets even easier. It doesn't matter if your friends are guys or girls. If there's more than one of them, you just use mes amis. Simple as that.
Okay, here's a quick but super important tip that's going to make you sound so much more natural. You know how some feminine words start with a vowel, like emi for a female friend? Well, saying ma emi sounds kind of clunky with the two vowel sounds bumping up against each other. So, to make it sound smoother, French does a little swap. You use mon instead, so you say ma emi. It's a tiny change, but it makes a huge difference to how you sound.
Okay, so we've claimed our stuff. We know how to talk about our things. Now, let's actually describe them. This is where we really start to build our expressive power, using descriptive adjectives.
I mean, we can talk about the color of a book, un livre rouge, the size of a person, un grand homme, or even their personality, like saying elle est intelligente. These are the words that make your sentences pop. But to use them the right way, there is one major rule you have to know. And that brings us to the secret key of all French description, the golden rule. You guys, this is a big one. In French, adjectives must always agree with the noun they are describing. It's not a suggestion, it's a rule. But once you get it, honestly, everything else just clicks into place. And the rules themselves are actually wonderfully simple. To make most masculine adjectives feminine, you just add an E on the end. To make them plural, you add an S. And for a noun that's feminine and plural, you guessed it, you add ES. That's it. Let's look at a perfect example of this. On the left, un chien noir, a black dog. Chien is masculine, so noir just stays as it is. But look at the right, une robe noire, a black dress. Robe is feminine, so we add that little E to make it noir. See? So simple. And this chart just illustrates the complete system beautifully, using the color green or vert. For masculine singular, it's vert. Feminine singular, vert. Masculine plural, verts. And for feminine plural, verts. You can literally see how the adjective changes its little costume to perfectly match the noun it's describing. Okay, another quick pro tip for you. Where do you even put these adjectives? Well, about 90% of the time, they go after the noun. So in French, you'd say a car red, not a red car. The main exceptions are a handful of short, super common adjectives. Words like petit, grand, beau. Those guys actually go before the noun, just like in une belle maison.
All right, theory's great, but practice is where the real learning happens. It's time to combine everything we've just talked about, the possessive words and the descriptive words, and put them into some actual sentences.
Let's try these out together. Just repeat after me. Number 1. Mon frère est grand et drôle. Did you notice we used mon for the masculine frère? Okay, ready for number 2? Ma sœur est intelligente et gentille. Here we use ma for the feminine sœur. And check it out, the extra E on intelligente and gentille. Let's try number 3. Mes parents sont très occupés. Mes for the plural parents. Perfect. And last one, number 4. J'ai une petite voiture rouge. See how petite comes before the noun, but rouge comes after? You are totally getting this.
We have really covered a lot of ground in a very short amount of time, from claiming things to describing them and making sure everything agrees. So now, let's wrap it up, and I'll send you off with a little challenge. So, the most important thing to remember is that in French, the adjective is always serving the noun. It's all about the noun. Possessive adjectives agree with the item, not the owner. Descriptive adjectives are what bring your language to life, and that golden rule of agreement is what makes it all work perfectly.
And just like that, you have the tools. So here is your mission. Describe your best friend. Is he grand? Is she intelligente? Are they drôles? Try to use the concepts we've just covered to put together a few sentences. This is how you really truly make the language your own.
Keep that curiosity and that momentum going. Like they say, continuez à apprendre le français avec passion, which just means keep learning French with passion. Thanks so much for joining me, and à bientôt!
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're building your essential French toolkit. We're going to take you from feeling like a lost tourist to navigating a city with total confidence. Seriously, by the end of this, you'll be asking for, understanding, and following directions like a pro. So, let's jump right in. Okay, just imagine this for a second. You step off the train in Paris or maybe Lyon. You can smell fresh croissants in the air, the architecture is just stunning, but where do you actually go? Well, this is where our little adventure, our urban explorer's quest begins. You're not just a tourist anymore, you're on a mission.
And what's the first stop on any great quest in France? A cafe, of course. So that's our target. Now, the very first step for any good explorer is to get the lay of the land. And that means we need to know how to read a map. To make any sense of a map, you have to understand where things are in relation to each other, right? Is the museum behind the park? Is the bakery in front of the post office? That's where our first set of tools comes into play, prepositions of place.
Let's get into your foundation. These words you see right here, sur for on, sous for under, devant for in front of, and derrière for behind, these are your new best friends. They give you the power to describe exactly where things are. So you could look at a map and say, the café is devant the post office. Easy.
Okay, let's make these words stick. Saying them out loud really helps. Ready? Repeat after me. La voiture est devant la maison. That means the car is in front of the house. Fantastic! You're already sounding more like a local. Let's do another one.
Now this one is super useful. À côté de, which just means next to. Let's give it a try. Le café est à côté de la banque. The café is next to the bank. See? Perfect for spotting those landmarks.
And one more classic example, just for good measure. Say it with me. Le chat est sur la table. The cat is on the table. It's simple, it's memorable, and it really locks in what sur means. You're doing great.
So, you can read the map. That's a huge step. But what happens when the map just isn't cutting it, or you're totally turned around? Well, it's time to level up your quest and talk to a local. Let's learn how to politely ask for some help. Your go-to starting phrase is almost always going to be où est, which is simply where is. Then, when they answer, you need to listen for the key stuff, like allez tout droit, which means go straight ahead. These little phrases are the absolute building blocks for getting around.
Okay, now pay close attention here, because this slide shows the two most critical commands you will ever need. On the left, we've got tourner à gauche, that's turn left, and on the right, tourner à droite, turn right. Getting these two right is literally the difference between finding that awesome cafe and ending up on the other side of town.
Let's see how this all fits together in a real conversation. So step 1, you politely get someone's attention. Excusez-moi, où est la gare? Step 2, they reply with your new phrases. Allez tout droit, puis tournez à gauche. Step 3, you say a simple merci, and they'll probably say de rien. See, it's just a simple 4-step dance. You can totally do this.
All right, you have the directions. Your quest is officially moving forward. Now it's time to actually, well, go. To talk about going somewhere, you need one of the most important verbs in all of French, aller, which means, you guessed it, to go.
Let's take a look at how this verb works. It's a little bit irregular, I'll admit, but you'll get the hang of it super fast. Just look at the slide. See how it changes for each person? For I go, it's je vais. For you go, it's tu vas. And for we go, it's nous allons. This is exactly how you tell people where you're headed.
Now, here is a quick pro tip that's going to make you sound so much more natural. In French, you never really say aller. Those two little words basically smash together and become o. It's a super simple shortcut that makes a huge difference. So you wouldn't say je vais aller cinéma, you'd say je vais au cinéma.
Time to practice that new rule. Let's give it a go. Repeat after me. Je vais au supermarché. I'm going to the supermarket. Hear how smooth that O sounds? It just flows. Fantastic. Let's try it with we. Ready? Nous allons à l'université. We are going to the university. So here, notice, we use à la because the word university starts with a vowel. Excellent. You are now officially ready to tell people where you're going.
And voila, you did it. You followed the directions, you navigated the streets, and you can see that beautiful cafe just ahead. Quest successful. But hey, before you run in and order that coffee, let's do a quick little check to make sure your new skills are nice and sharp.
All right, here's the final test. A friendly local stops you and asks, Où est la pharmacie? Where's the pharmacy? You glance at your map and you see it's right behind the church. How would you use your brand new preposition toolkit to answer them? Take a second and think about it.
If you said elle est derrière l'église, you are absolutely correct. You nailed it. You used derrière perfectly to explain that the pharmacy is behind the church. This is amazing. You're not just asking for directions anymore, you're giving them.
So let's just quickly recap everything you've accomplished. You have officially unlocked a powerful 3-part toolkit. You've got prepositions to describe any location. You've got the key phrases to ask for and get directions, and you've got the verb aller to say where you're going. You are so ready for your French city adventures.
So, you found the cafe, you mastered the basics, and now the entire city is yours to discover. The only question left is, with all these new skills you have, where will your quest take you next? Bravo and happy exploring.
All right, so you're planning a trip to France. Amazing. Let's get you ready for one of the most rewarding parts, ordering food with absolute confidence. We're going to break it all down so you can walk into any cafe ready to go. You know that feeling, right? You're sitting in this beautiful Parisian cafe. The vibe is perfect, but then the waiter hands you the menu, and suddenly it feels like a pop quiz you are definitely not prepared for. Well, guess what? You're not alone. And that feeling, it ends today. In this quick explainer, we're giving you the exact simple tools you need to order like you've been doing it your whole life. So let's think of this as your mission, to walk into any French cafe and feel completely at ease. And it all starts with just decoding the menu itself. Okay, first things first, let's start with the absolute basics, understanding what's even on the page in front of you. We'll just break down the keywords you are going to see over and over again. First up, the meals of the day. You've got le petit déjeuner for breakfast, le déjeuner for lunch, and le dîner for dinner. And you can't forget the very, very important goûter, which is basically the essential afternoon snack time. And now for the good stuff. Think of these as your building blocks. Le pain for bread, le fromage for cheese, le poulet is chicken, and of course, who could forget les frites for fries? Honestly, with just these words, you can figure out most classic French dishes. And to drink, you're gonna need l'eau for water, and café for coffee, or hey, maybe du vin, some wine. See? Simple. Just like that, you have the core vocabulary to understand pretty much any basic menu. All right, so vocabulary is one thing, but now for the secret ingredient. This is a little trick that's gonna make you sound so much more natural when you order. We're talking about something called partitive articles. I know, that sounds super technical and maybe a little boring, but it's just the French way of saying you want some of something. You know, you don't want all the bread in the entire bakery, you just want some bread. This little concept is key. And the rule itself is way simpler than it looks, I promise. You just use du for masculine words like pain, you use de la for feminine ones like salade, de lit for anything that starts with a vowel like o, and de for plurals. So instead of saying I want bread, you say I want some bread. Je voudrais du pain. It's a tiny change that makes a huge difference in how fluent you sound. Okay, you've got the words, you've got the grammar secret, now it is time for action. Here are the only 3 phrases you will ever really need to place your order. You've got options. Je voudrais is your polite, can't go wrong go-to phrase. Je prends is a bit more direct and confident, kind of like saying, I'll take. And pour moi is super casual and friendly, perfect for a relaxed little bistro. Okay, listen, if you only remember one phrase from this whole thing, make it this one. Je voudrais. I would like. It is your golden key. Just add s'il vous plaît at the end and you are set for pretty much any situation. It's polite, it's clear, it's always correct. And to get the whole process started and wrapped up, to ask for the menu, it's simply la carte, s'il vous plaît. And when you're all finished and ready to go, l'addition, s'il vous plaît. Easy, right? So we've got all the pieces, the vocabulary, our little grammar secret, and the magic phrases. Now let's put it all together. A quick final rehearsal so you can see exactly how it all flows. Let's see it in action. the waiter asks if you've chosen. You, calm and collected, can reply with our golden phrase.
Oui, je voudrais du poulet, s'il vous plaît.
See that? You used do for some chicken. Perfect. Then they ask about a drink, and you say un verre d'eau, merci. You can see how these simple little pieces just create a totally smooth, natural conversation. All right, you've seen how it's done. Time for a quick pop quiz to lock all this in. I'll ask, you can say the answer out loud wherever you are. Ready? Okay, using your number one magic phrase, how would you politely ask for some water? And I'll give you a hint. Remember that water, O, starts with a vowel. Did you get it? Je voudrais de l'eau. You use the right phrase, je voudrais, and the perfect partitive article, de le. Excellent. Okay, one last test. The meal was incredible. You're ready to head back out into the beautiful city. What do you say to the waiter? That's it. L'addition, s'il vous plaît. You've done it. You have successfully navigated the entire meal, from sitting down to paying the bill. And there you have it. That little bit of fear or panic we talked about, it's gone. It's been replaced by a simple, effective toolkit. You're not just staring at a menu anymore. You're planning your next delicious meal. So really, the only question left is, what are you going to order? Bonjour. Today, we're going to tackle the single most useful topic for starting a conversation anywhere in the French-speaking world. Get ready because you're about to have your very first real, everyday chat in French. So what do you think it is? What's that one universal subject? It's not politics. Nope, that's not food. It's the weather. It is the perfect, safe, and simple way to break the ice, and we're going to master it together right now. Okay, here's our game plan to get you conversation ready. We'll start with the essentials, grab the basic phrases, figure out how to ask the right questions, connect it all to the seasons, and then you get to try it out. By the end of this, you'll be good to go. My goal today is super simple. I want to arm you with practical, high-frequency phrases that you can start using immediately. I mean, like today. This isn't just about memorizing words. It's about building your confidence for real small talk. Ready to jump in? The great news is you really only need to learn 2 simple patterns to talk about most weather conditions. Seriously, just 2. So let's break them down. So our first pattern is il fait. Think of this one for general weather conditions, kind of like the overall vibe. Let's try saying them together. Repeat after me. For it's hot, we say il fait chaud. For it's cold, il fait froid. For it's nice weather, il fait beau. And for it's bad weather, il fait mauvais. Excellent. Okay, on to our second pattern, il y a. You'll use this when you're talking about something you can actually see in the sky, like the sun or clouds. Let's practice these. For it's sunny, you say, il y a du soleil. For it's windy, il y a du vent. And for it's cloudy, il y a de l'orage. You are totally getting the hang of this. And of course, there are always a couple of exceptions, right? But honestly, these are the easiest ones to remember. For rain and snow, French uses these really simple standalone verbs. To say it's raining, it's just il pleut. It's snowing is just il neige. That's it. See? Super simple. All right, so you can describe the weather, but how do you actually start the conversation? Let's take a look. This right here is your golden question. Quel temps fait-il? If you translate it literally, it's something like, what weather is it making? Which is kind of fun, but this is by far the most common and natural way to ask. Oh, and if you want to be specific about today, you could also say, il fait quel temps aujourd'hui? And here it is. This is where it all comes together. Someone asks, quel temps fait-il? And now you can confidently reply, il fait beau aujourd'hui. And just like that, you've had a conversation in French. It really is that simple. Okay, let's add another layer of detail to what you know. I mean, knowing the weather is great, but connecting it to the seasons, that's what's going to make your French sound way more natural and descriptive. Okay, time for the 4 seasons. Let's say these together. Spring is le printemps. Summer is l'été. Autumn is l'automne. And winter is l'hiver. Nicely done. So now we can combine them. The pattern is usually un plus the season. So how would you describe a typical summer? You'd say, en été, il fait chaud. In summer, it's hot. Simple. Let's try another one. For winter, we can just grab one of those easy standalone verbs we learned. En hiver, il neige. In winter, it snows. And for autumn, let's use our il y a structure. En automne, il y a du vent. In autumn, it's windy. You see how all these different little pieces are starting to fit together now? And finally, spring. Now, pay close attention here. There's a small change. Because printemps is a masculine word, we say au printemps. So you get au printemps, il pleut souvent. In spring, it often rains. It's a tiny detail, but trust me, it makes a really big difference. Now let's see how this all works in a real exchange. Notice how speaker B combines two of our phrases, il fait froid et il y a du vent, to give a much more detailed answer. And then when asked about tomorrow, they use a simple future tense, il va pleuvoir. This is exactly how a real conversation would flow.
All right, you've seen all the pieces of the puzzle. Now it's time to put your brain to work and see what you've retained. No pressure at all, this is just a fun chance to practice.
The rules are simple. I'm going to give you an English phrase, you try saying it out loud in French, and then I'll reveal the answer. Ready? Let's do this.
First one, how do you say, it's raining? Take a second and say it out loud.
The answer is il pleut. Nicely done. That was one of our easy standalone verbs. You got this. Okay, let's try a full sentence now. How do you say, in winter, it snows? Think about the season and the right weather verb.
And the answer is, en hiver, il neige.
You're combining the season and the weather to make a complete, perfect sentence. Fantastic work! We've built such a solid foundation today, so now the final step is to make it personal. So my question to you is this. Using the French you just learned, what's the weather like where you are right now, and what's your favorite season? Go ahead, try to form the sentences out loud. That's how you turn learning into language.